there's less perceptions to think about on the island,
There are. It's quieter.
and it's all the success or failure is determined by the other people there.
Exactly. It's in a box. It's in a box. So,
I think that actually tees up the transition to Survivor quite well. Before we start, I just want to give a quick little highlight reel for anybody listening in who might not know how
yes.
much of an epic player you really are. You have seen so much of the game's experience, and I think in the game you said at one point you were on a mission to experience all of Survivor, and I think you totally got it. Um, I'll just dive into a couple of those things right now. So, first of all, these are not all good, but it can't all be good for it to have the full Survivor experience. So, first of all, you got voted out with an idol and an advantage in Edge of Extinction, but you
Correct.
followed that up in 50 when you saved an idol for a future round instead of playing it. So, I want to definitely talk about how you made it through that mental leap, because if you get blindsided with an idol and advantage, the
Oh my
idea
God.
behind like immediately using it is super high, especially if you're coming into the next season, everybody knows you have it. You started both with the numbers in Korong and against the numbers in Game Changers. You
Hmm.
had your game completely in the hands of somebody else, in the hands of somebody with a super idol that you had to break up with Ty, and you did it.
Yeah.
You went deep 3 out of 4 times, got a really tight runner-up placement, and you've been knocked out unexpectedly early in a blindside as well, so you've got the full gambit there.
Hmm.
Of all the players of Survivor, you have the fifth most days played of everyone, and you're within like 10 or 12 days of the top spot, which is just insane.
Really? Is Ozzy
Yeah,
the top or Boston Rob?
it's
Rob.
Boston Rob.
Mm.
But, he played 5 times. You've played 4. And so the fact that you're right there is insane. Like everybody else that's in that top 5 has played 5. I
You.
think there was one more person that did 4.
And Edge
Um,
of Extinction counts to you?
yeah, I mean, you were
Thanks.
playing,
Thank you.
so you've won immunities, you found advantages, you've executed blindsides, found cracks, created cracks, dealt with horribly emotional moments that were completely out of your control in Medevacs, and then won the biggest season of Survivor that they had to offer, and you got all the way. Um,
I don't know.
it's
It's crazy.
it's pretty incredible, and every time that I've seen you play, one of the things that popped out to me was that you had a really strong EQ, you really related to people, and you were able to talk to everybody, and you had a great read on them. And I think that narrative might have been lost because it's hard to pick up in the full narrative journey. But when I
Mm.
was watching your highlight reels, I was like, wow, you really did have a good understanding of what made people tick. And I think that really plays well into um, how successful you were as a player.
Thank you. Thank you. The one thing I did do is I never won a Chinese food reward. I never won those, which is funny.
Were you
Thank
hankering for like orange chicken out there?
I wasn't, but that's just like one thing I haven't done. I always felt like that would sit funny when you hadn't eaten. But thank you. Thanks for saying like the EQ part. I do like it's so interesting. I keep thinking about like the reason I've gotten to go back 4 times. If I hadn't had Co Wrong, which was the messy game that it was, I don't think I would have gone back 2, 3, 4 times because it's a television show. And I do think my skills are often in like the in between and the quiet moments and the not doing things and just observing people. So thank you for seeing that. I think that's a valid way to play.
One of the things that I was talking about in my TikTok series on strategy is you want to
Yep.
be a ghost in the group, but you want to have really strong one-on-one relationships. Does that
Yes.
track?
100%. So you mean like overall, like in the entire game?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, something Jonathan and I actually discussed, and I'm like, I'm good with him. Was he said you were really good at like speaking very clearly at tribal council and then just like fading into the background and playing dumb in the group. I'm like, thank you. So there's that part of it. And also, yeah, I'm a one-on-one person in life. That's why I don't like the beginning of the game because it is very much like, we're a tribe. I'm like, give me to the individual part of this game. I want my individual relationships. I want to move the parts myself. I don't need this group thing. I've always had one-on-one relationships. And I can say that like in 50, I had a good working relationship with every single person. Chrissy and I didn't talk too much, but it was different with every person too, to the point where there were so many people. I remember just like breaking down one day of like, I can't manage all of these different needs, because I really come at it from like, what's everyone's hope, dream, fear, motivation, and the returning season player. The returning player season, everybody's trying to undo something from the past, unless you're a winner. So yeah, one on one, but fade into the background in the group. And when there's a group, I'm very good at just kind of like, is he there? What's going on?
Really hard skill to master, especially in a game that's really just determined by the people around you. There's this drive, and I've felt this while playing backyard versions of Survivor. You
Yeah.
have this drive where you have to take control of the game
Oh,
because
yeah.
there's so much pressure on it. You're like, I can control this game. I can push this narrative. How do you, I guess, take a step back? I think honestly, this is a change that I saw in your seasons as well. Like in the beginning, you really felt like you were needing control,
Uh-huh.
whereas 50, it really felt like you released control and you rode the wave.
Oh my gosh, I love talking to you already, because like this is what I think about. This is how I think about the game. It's an
Amazing.
energetic thing. Like 50 was all about like the big energy. People think I'm like, I've done intuitive healing and woo-woo stuff. Absolutely. Love my time in LA. But that's how I think about the game. Like I release control in 50. Like because I did like 32. I was raised in an achievement oriented background. Like if you achieve and you work hard, you will arrive. And when I like created that resume in 32, nobody cared. So like you have to what I learned is you have to release control enough so that it's like a rubber band, and you hold this space for everybody else's ego and personality and story to take center stage until the right moment where you have control enough where you're like the top headline at the end. That's what I learned. Like you have to release control, but you can't release it. Like you have to understand your positioning. Like that's why it was a game of positioning and not like driving a vote. Because you have to understand like if something goes wrong, where you fall. And for me, that's enough control of knowing where to fall if things don't go my way.
How do you think about where to fall? So you're looking at, say, a
Yeah.
group of 10 people.
Yeah.
Um, there's two plans in the air, maybe three plans in the air, because there's always chaos, there's always multiple plans. How are you thinking about that situation, and what are you making sure of before tribal council happens to make sure that you are falling into the right location?
Yeah, so I'm thinking about what was 10 and 30 in 50. How many do we have in was it Christian vote?
I think 10 might have been Blood Moon, so that was kind of a weird one, but
10
I
left.
don't actually know.
10 left was Stephanie. Stephanie was
Okay.
10th, I think.
You're
Yes.
gonna have the right answer here. I don't have to.
Stephanie was 10th. It was a little hard. Like that was like the most precarious part of the game for me in 50 was when Devins pulled out the idol that he'd planted, and then Mr. Beast and Stephanie went home. But at the kind of the positioning thing is I was very aware of kind of like 50 was funny. People talking about the middle. The middle wasn't actually the middle. It was ridiculous. But I was noticing like the groups of people that were starting to like separate from the consensus. Because everyone wanted a consensus vote in 50 as long as possible. You
Hmm,
saw groups kind of coalescing, so I tried to make sure I had like a one-on-one into each group.
smart.
When people are sort of going into their little pods, I try to have like a deep enough relationship that I wouldn't be like the first person that they tried to go for. And the other way with positioning is I was always trying to, as those groups were kind of coming apart, like plant a seed in one group against another group. Like I knew that there was a tension. I could sense it with Suri and Stephanie. So when Stephanie and Jonathan and Devins and I are on the beach and Ozzy's name comes out, first thing I do is I come up to Suri and I'm like, Ozzy's name's coming out. I don't want him to go. Or why are we not paying attention? Why is nobody paying attention to Stephanie? Like, so I'd always try to sense the group, know where I am in it, and start to like seed things early, like a couple steps early with the groups against one another.
Makes total sense. You mentioned that the middle was not actually the middle in this
Mm-mm.
past season. I'm curious what you mean of that. Was everybody playing the middle? Something that showed up in World Apart, I think it was 30, was the idea of voting pods, where the voting and like always got reshuffled, pretty much every tribal.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
is that the vibe?
It did feel like it got reshuffled every tribal for sure. But the middle, because they were saying me, Devins, Emily, and Christian were the middle. The middle was actually more Suri and Ozzy and Rizzo.
Interesting.
And I really think I think like Suri, I mean, I always say in 50, like no one can say they owned a vote unless it was Suri because she's perfect and she made the move to me.
She's amazing.
Um,
She's an
she's
amazing player.
amazing, incredible. And then actually Rizzo was doing a lot of work of the middle. Like nobody saw what Rizzo was doing. I had an intuitive sense he was. He's a great player. So the middle was, I think it was a lot of work of like Suri to make the middle, the perception of the middle, she kind of shuffled off of herself because she was less loud than the Devons, the Christians, the Emilys of the world.
That totally checks out. Um, would love to talk about, I guess, control of the middle during the middle game. Because
Control.
when you're in the middle, it seems like you do have a lot of control, but you're honestly always trying to push that vibe of control off to somebody else. And I think that kind of brings up another theme that I want to wrap through this conversation, which is the idea of constantly pitching threats. Is that how you get, I guess, the target off your back? Just identifying what makes somebody a threat and dialing into it constantly?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's so funny I played the middle because I said in Co Wrong about Julia Sokolowski that sometimes the guy in the middle of the road gets run over. It's just so
Yep.
funny now. Yeah, so something I felt was really, I mean, my intuition was like finally back on in 50, which is what I had lost in 38. And something I kept trying to do is like sense like who is going to be, Rob Sesternino talks about like the top of the news cycle, who was emerging. So I'd always pay attention to who was emerging and kind of, so like a great example would be in the vote where Devons pulls out the idol at tribal. This is where I was probably in the least control of the game because I came into the merge with no social equity, which ended up being helpful later in the merge, but was not the best at the beginning. So something that happened was it was when Suri goes off to exile with the coconuts, and she has to find the Phoenix coconut. It was the duos twist, and I'm with my buddy Devins, and Christian did a lot of legwork to save Devins and I noticed he was getting like very comfortable body language wise with Jonathan, and I'm like, that's
Mm.
new. And also, Christian's getting pretty vocal, and he's everywhere, and I'm like, Christian is emerging, like so as soon as that tribal was over, I knew that he hadn't told Jonathan about the vote, and I went to Jonathan. And I was
Mm.
like, I didn't say like, let's go for Christian, but I knew he was hurt by Christian, that Christian didn't tell him, and that Christian had been like kind of his buddy recently. And I was like, I'm not with those people. So I immediately differentiated myself. The second I could sense that a loyalty was broken, I immediately went to the other guy and was like, hey, just so you know, I'm not with them.
Nice. Let's talk about that loyalty being broken piece because I think it's actually a major thread that we can pull on here. We've said that Survivor is kind of a game of positioning rather than, say, a game of lying.
Yeah.
Because when you get found out as a liar or you directly lie to somebody that is still in the game, very
Mm.
difficult to work with them in the future.
Yes.
So, how much does, I guess, loyalty breaking really matter? Can you work with those people again? We've seen examples of being able to
Yes.
mend that relationship, but
Yes.
there's a schism there. How do you guess? I guess how do you manage that when you're in, say, a lose-lose situation where no matter what you do, you're going to burn somebody? That has happened to you in the past.
I think that so the loyal so it's you're saying loyalty and how do you manage loyalty with the breaking of trust that inevitably has to happen. Something I've thought about is incredibly, I even have like I pulled up notes on this for you. It's the depth of relationship. That's something I learned in 32. My relationships in my life can sometimes go like very deep very quickly, but there is a cost to having a deep relationship and a very locked alliance. So in 50, I did not want a deep relationship. I wanted working relationships because the issue with a deep relationship is that it gives you loyalty, emotional support, trust and comfort during a conflict, and like long term alliance potential. But then it creates expectations from other people, visibility within the group, guilt when interests diverge, and the perception that you're a pair. And I did not want that. Like Angelina said in her exit press that on the original Vatu, she said, You, I was her number one, but I didn't say it back. That's true. Because what I had learned from Co-Wrong and like Debbie and I were really tight. She didn't vote for me at the end. Something I learned in 34 too is that Sierra Moret and I were immediately grouped together on a
Hmm.
tribe with Sandra, who wanted any reason to get me out. She's like, "Do you know each other? Are you related?" And I have developed over time like a phobia of the deep relationship in Survivor because of the cost of that deep relationship. So when Angelina said, "You're my number one," and was like speaking on my behalf, I was like, "I don't believe in number one." I like didn't want it. I did not want it because there's a cost to that. I would rather a working relationship where you're a pleasant surprise when other people are burned by their deep relationships.
That's an amazing insight, and I don't think any Survivor player has actually vocalized that before. That is super, super smart because everybody goes in there like, I want to find my number one. And being able to stay flexible allows you to remain in the middle, allows you to stay uncertain as long as possible, which actually gives you the most power. It's really smart.
It does like, and you can still like develop that rapport with someone, and like you can have like things in common. But I mean, I thought of 50 as a business trip. I wasn't there to make friends. I sound like I'm on The Bachelor now, but it's true. It's true.
I'm curious, did you feel Genevieve was of the same ilk in that? Because in 50, you immediately looked at Genevieve and said, we're similar in mindset.
Mm.
What scared you about her so much?
That's so interesting. Genevieve and I are similar, but then very, very different, wired very differently, I would say. We do probably think about the game in somewhat of a similar way. Would you say that we do? Do you think we do?
There's similarities. You guys are both extremely logical and smart and approach the game in a
Yeah,
very long-term focus. Genevieve also expressed on her previous season that she put up a lot of walls to make sure that she didn't connect with people. And I think there was a little bit of a blend there. Thought she
interesting.
had really good EQ, really high
Yeah,
intelligence about what made people tick. But I would say her level of connection, rapport building was a little bit lacking on that front.
interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I will say that she's someone that I struggle with in terms of like understanding what went wrong. I definitely went into 50 like she was someone I saw who could, maybe I saw a bit of myself in Co-Wrong in her, that she could be your friend and then like cut you at a moment's notice. The thing with me that I actually, that conversation was very awkward in the first episode. I had gone to her and tried to have that conversation because what I sensed was a discrepancy between what she was saying to me and then what she was showing me. And that's where I think we were very different. Like she was telling me she wanted to work with me. We're having very deep strategy
Incongruent.
conversations. Incongruent. Yeah, it was incongruent what she was saying and showing to me. So we'd have very deep strategy conversations. And then I felt like she did not want to be around me
Hmm.
personally at camp. And that was hard for me. And that's where I think I'm actually different. I almost I feel like my connection with people is on like more a human level, and then like the emotion is the strategy for her. I think like it's strategy first and then the emotion is layered on top, if that makes sense. Like,
It totally makes sense, and I think that's actually what a lot of game bots get wrong about the game is the game is the people. The people are the puzzle, and how
yeah.
people respond is
Yes.
full of emotion, and that's something that's so difficult to prepare for because it doesn't really click into your head that this is like a month that you're living together through huge emotional swings. Everybody's going through a profound emotional change, one of the biggest changes of their life in a lot of
For sure.
ways, and you're witnessing it. And oftentimes, you're going to get to know these people better than you know a lot of your best friends. Because
Yes.
best friends, it's very social. Like you're having a good social experience through time and you're very cooperative. Whereas Survivor, you're put in a pressure cooker where you're forced to make decisions about people's personalities and your judgment about them. And you're seeing lots of different areas of conflict, all in a world where you're quite literally living on the same beach together. You end up spending more time with these people than you do from many of your friends. And I think that piece is really hard to understand for anybody who hasn't played a game like this. Like
Yes.
I've played backyard games for 3 days at a time, and I'm super close with all these people. I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of them are
Yeah.
my best friends, right? And I'm sure you're having that same experience too. And I wonder, that part isn't really captured in the strategy of the show. Can you talk a little bit about those emotions and how those layer in?
Yeah, but oh my God, I love that we're talking about this. Like you're helping me come to terms with like the beginning of the game is my least favorite part. Pre-merge, I
Mm.
hate Survivor.
Kumbaya Survivor?
I hate it. I hate Kobayashi Survivor. It's not for me. Um, and I love what you're saying about game bots. I've always been called the game bot. I'm like, but how am I a game bot when I'm literally having an emotional breakdown every 5 minutes? Like, I do think people like, do you want to look at Survivor like you're looking at a chessboard, or do you look at as a bunch of humans in a game?
Mm.
I look at it as a bunch of humans in the chessboard in the game, not as a chess like looking at the board versus in the board. And I think we are in the board with human beings in a time and place in this game, not looking at the game. Those emotions, I mean, they're everything. They come first. Like people for, and I said this over and over, and I feel like I'm getting real meta and existential, but like Survivor really is a moment in time
Yeah.
with people who are having certain emotions on a certain day.
You
It is
can't play the
not,
same game because the people
no,
are different.
you cannot play the same game because people are different. What you can do is recognize patterns you've seen before or take a different approach to maximize your chances of making it through. Like I have learned that keeping those working relationships versus deep relationships is like if I play the game 100 times, if I play the game that I did in Korong 100 times, I'm going to have less of a chance of winning versus if I played the game I did in 50. So
Curious. Can you explain a little bit why there? Was it because you went so deep and then just got screwed by medevacs? Or
I did make mistakes. Like I'm always first to
everybody
like
makes mistakes.
shouldn't have crossed out the get names.
Yeah,
This and
the Peter to Julia cross. I mean, that was that was a bit of a mistake, but like everybody makes mistakes. It's fine.
right. Yeah. I mean, and I like own them. I think it's funny. Rob Cesternino's like doing a rewatch and he was like, "So how did you actually think you could have gotten Julia out potentially?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't remember." But what do I mean by that? Like I mean go wrong. I go back to it again. Like the percentage, like I would win the game more times playing as I did in 50. I mean, I'm talking kind of post merge on than I did in 32. It's the depth of relationship issue. Like I had a fundamental issue where I had like relationships that were so deep that it was always going to hurt too much at the end for people to
Was
vote for me.
was that a factor because you established rapport really quickly, or you had the numbers really quickly? Is it actually better to be down in numbers early? This is a phenomenon we've seen consistently across a lot of seasons. If there's an early tribe that gets like destroyed, oftentimes they make it to the final four.
I hate to say it, but I actually think it's true. Like I do, because I do think what we're getting into now is the like, when do you peak? And I know you've talked about this. And I think that if you are down on the numbers at a certain point and you able to come back from that, you are the underdog at the right time. And the underdog is the person that tends to have a better story going into tribal council. I thought I was the underdog in 32. The problem is that I had the numbers and my underdog situation came like in episode 1 when in my mind I was the underdog the whole time. By the time I got to the end of the game I had an established alliance and I was nowhere near that to everyone else. To an audience of Aubry I was the underdog, to the audience of the
Sure.
jury I was not.
I think that's one of the differences between a first-time player versus a returning player. And interestingly enough, I had this experience too the first time I played a backyard game, where I went into the backyard game and I had this perception of myself and a perception of how everybody thought of me. And it was only after that experience that I realized how wrong I was and that I only knew 5% of what everybody else was saying. And I had this level of confidence that I was going in with, and I just understood all of the relationships and blah, blah, blah. And then I got knocked out and had the conversations with everybody else. And that is actually the piece that created that profound change where you look at yourself differently and you are changed. You are a changed person after an experience like this. I know you've talked a little bit about that too. I mean, how did it shift, I guess, your perception of yourself moving forward?
Oh my gosh, it changed in every way. Like I It's so hard because like the biggest lesson from playing Survivor is that external validation and feedback doesn't matter. Yet
Mm,
I was able to get there because I took all of that information in and I faced it all. I took in everything, Nick, after 32, everything, every thread, every tweet, every DM, every comment.
dangerous.
And what'd you say?
Dangerous.
It is dangerous, but I took it in and I digested it and I was able to come to the conclusion that like something I don't think a lot of Survivor players or viewers realize is that more than one thing can be true at the same time. And what I mean by that is like when Jeff says perception is reality, it really is. When I took all those things in, I at first it was very destabilizing as a person, but then once I got like my grounding back in who I was able to realize that that reality existed at the same time so and so's did and someone else's did. It doesn't make one more true than the other. They all exist at the same time.
Well, the concept you're talking about right now, I did a minor in psychology, by the way. The concept you're talking about is like frame building. So everybody's got their own frame of reference of how they're viewing the situation. And everybody
Yes.
essentially is the hero of their own story, right? They're looking at it from their frame where they are the main character. And when two frames collide, only one frame can exist in the, I guess, the global narrative. But those frames still do exist in locally, like in your own head. And I think that the clashing of frames creates that bit of disconnect. And
Yes.
it's amazing that you are able to look at all of these frames and say all these things can be true because most people can't hold multiple frames in their head.
Oh, that is so. Oh, you do psych. You like psych. I don't have a degree in psych at all, but I love it. And that's so interesting. The local frame versus the kind of communal frame. I saw that on 50 more than anywhere. Like I do think that was kind of Genevieve and I had a bit of an issue. She was really good at making her local frame the communal frame. Like I kept saying that she controlled the narrative and social framing. I kept saying, going back to of the both tribes we were on, she's really talented at that. Very talented. And yes, I agree. Like everyone is the hero of their own story. I think that was I Christian Hubicki said Survivor 50 was about narrative warfare. He was absolutely correct. It was frame against frame all the time. We saw Devons versus Joe. Those frames didn't work. Um, it's the whole thing. It's, I mean, in 32, I was so in my own head. I'm someone who works things out internally. Like, I'm an ambivert, but very introverted. I think a lot. But something I have gotten better at is realizing that other people, like, it's very hard to break out of your lens, like, especially when you're tired and hungry. Um, but I do think it helped me in 50. Like, I knew that Jonathan and Joe, from what I had seen, there was a way to make them, from their standpoint, be less afraid of me than a Devons, than a Suri, than a Tiffany at the final seven. Like, and I knew because I was able to put myself in their frames. I think it's because I do marketing. And I think it's because I do work with executives where like they generally have very strong frames. And I have to, I always say, like, I help them with their marketing. I step into like a CEO suit and I'm like their proxy in the room. I have to do that all the time. You
You're
have to do
looking
that.
at it from their eyes.
Yep, 100%.
That's huge. Wow. It's a really, really good insight there too. I think one of the themes about this is one of the best frames that you can have framing somebody else up as a bigger threat. And I think that based on everything that we've said so far, that seems like one of the most consistent ways to knock somebody out without actually saying a name.
So say that. So you are framing someone else up to everyone else yes,
It's a huge threat. Yeah.
as like an existential threat. That's, yeah, I'm trying to think of a good example for you. Yes, because I was very reticent. I mean, I didn't think I threw Genevieve's name at the beginning. I
Look,
thought
as soon as you say a name
you're
that
screwed.
exists in the world, and that's
Exists.
actually how I got voted out of my first backyard game of
You said a
Survivor.
name and you were
I said
done.
a name. Yeah, and I was done. And I saw all the machinations that happened after that, and I could see it happen. I was like, oh, I screwed up because I said a name. Like I shouldn't have said a name.
Yeah, so it's the middle, the framing of the people in the middle. That was one narrative frame that came up. Um, Yeah, there are a lot of different frames. Then there became the frame of like the underdog. Like that was a way that I worked against Tiffany, I think. Because Tiffany was having that like she emerged at a point. Then there was like the frame of the showman in front
Mm,
of the jury, and that was a way to kind of set up Devon's. I mean, you do have to say names when you get to a certain point,
of course.
but you can frame different stories and energies emerging at different parts of the game of like who's the underdog right now, who's the head of the alliance, who's the person nobody's talking about but should be looking at, like frames or storylines starting to emerge. You have to almost like
Storylines. Nice.
yeah, storylines. And I kind of stole it from Rob Setzer. You know, he said like, "Who's the top headline?" But like story, I think of it as stories. Like storylines emerge through Survivor. There's always an underdog. There's always the person in charge. There's the person in the middle. There's the mom. There's the dad. So you have to like find the storyline that's emerging in that moment and coming across the ticker, and
That
just
makes
like
them the most threatening.
makes them the most threatening. And then you put it like you get it in there like a move or two ahead of time, and then it makes it easier when it's time to talk about it. And you get in their head too. Like you can like talking about storylines and frames. Like I love Joe. Joe was very open that he was worried about the people who were the snakes in the grass. Like he was very worried about Camilla and Kyle, and he saw that Devon's, Emily, Christian, and then by de facto me were those people in 50. And he trusted me enough that he told me like that's how he saw me. And the second he saw me like that, I made inroads with the people with Joe and then was like, let the snakes in the grass take themselves out.
Sure. In 32, you mentioned that you needed to come in to sway a lot of people with a plan with a lot of confidence. You don't want to come in with a place of weakness, right? Because then people might not go with your plan. I think that sort of changed in 50, where it's not necessarily coming in pitching a plan with confidence as much as it is just being like, I don't know about that person over there. Seems a little threatening. Maybe you might want to consider that they could be threatening. A storyline over there could be threatening. And they're just nonchalance and fall into the background. Very Suri-like.
Oh my gosh, did I say that?
Originally, yeah.
I did. Oh my gosh, I need to know when because I could not disagree with that more. That is
Huh.
not the way to play. No,
I'll try to look for it. I watched it last night.
oh my gosh, you plant that seed and then you run away. Yeah, you have to plant that seed. There's a way to plant the seed and then cultivate it.
How do you do
Yeah,
it? How do you plant a seed and cultivate it?
yeah. Uh, wow, this one is a little. This is where I had a little hard time at times articulating in 50 because it is like you have to do it when you first sense a tension or a loss of trust. You bring it up and then you bring back light evidence as you see it. I feel like it has to work one or two before the actual vote. Um, how do you do it? Yeah, that's really interesting. You got to do
I
it a
mean,
little ahead
this
of
is
time.
the
It's
crux
hard.
of one of the most experienced players of Survivor, looking at 137 days of experience and saying, you know what?
It's hard.
This is really how the game works. This is how it actually comes up.
This is great. We're gonna have to talk through this one. It's
Sure.
about it's
It's contextual,
planting.
of course, and I think that's
It
part of the
is.
issue. Is it's like it's so abstract because Survivor is such a concrete thing about who the other people are, and how you bring it up really matters because of who those people are. So it's different in every format, and I think that's why it's so hard to pull out what this thread is.
It is.
But there is a thread here.
Yeah, what name the thread? Give the thread a name for me. Like what are we're trying to get at how you do it.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out how to plant the seed and then stoke it very subtly.
Yeah, so something that I have been thinking about is I forget where I heard it, but someone said what makes Suri so masterful, and this is going away from a second, is like when people are talking about somebody and then that person walks in, most people will stop talking. What Suri does is she's like, "Hey, we were just talking about you." That's kind of something at that level of nuance. But how do you do it? I will like I prefer to plant the seed of not saying this person is coming for you, but say, "Hey, do you notice how nobody ever talks about like Rizzo? Like have I think it's identifying the kind of cultural shared experience about a person that
Ooh.
nobody is talking about. It's about
Ooh.
finding the thing that everybody is feeling that they haven't been able to name yet.
Ooh, that's
And
nice.
it's about,
That's calling out that frame that exists in multiple people's heads, but
yes.
hasn't been said. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you have to think about the layers. If you can talk about the person within the tribe and the way they're moving that no one's named yet, and then if you're kind of going in for the kill, something I did with Sari was I'd talk about the threat to Ozzy. So I'd talk about, okay, this person's getting closer to dismantling your worldview and your universe here. And the last thing you do is you bring it in and you're like, they're coming for you. But you can't just say they're coming for you right away. You have to
Because
like
then they'll
warm the
try to
person up.
validate it.
Yeah, you have
Right.
to warm the person up. So it's about talking about the shared experience that everyone's feeling but haven't named. And then it's getting closer, like it's getting closer to home, that threat, you better pay attention. And then, like, the kill shot is kind of, they're coming for you. I think a lot of people make the mistake of they're coming for you too early, and then there's enough time for it to just fall apart.
Totally.
Timing.
There's a lot with timing in this game, and I think one of the
Timing.
difficulties of Survivor is because you are out there for the entire time, honestly, kind of bored, because there's just so much dead time, but the game is played in these little moments.
It
Can you
is.
talk about, I guess, just the length of time and how boredom really, and the lack of sleep, the lack of food, how that really impacts the moments at which you choose to have these conversations?
That's a really great question. I think about it all the time because I think that, like, I think Kyle Frazier said survivors won in the fringes. I always say survivors won in the moments where nobody's talking. I really do believe that.
Mm.
Pace is so interesting. This is why I'm fascinated by Big Brother. I'm fascinated by like watching Suri and Big Brother versus watching Suri and Survivor. I mean, obviously there's a difference with 39 days and 26. 26, you really have to make a decision and be good at knowing exactly where your positioning is so you can fail fast and pivot quickly and have an escape hatch if you mess up because there's not time to like work your magic. On the other side of it, when you have 39 days and there's downtime, sometimes there's too much time. And if you bring up a plan too early, it simmers and then it falls apart on you. That's why Big Brother is like a nightmare to me. I'm like, oh, there's too much time for shit to go wrong. But when you're hungry, tired, I think that people's ability to hold the space for a problem that they need to solve gets really impatient and almost like truncated when you're exhausted. Like you almost want to go through the process of making the decision and feeling good about it as quickly as possible to get through the discomfort faster, like the
Mm.
mental discomfort, because you're already like depleted in other ways. So I mean, I think that just speaks to the fact like you can't mess up in how you bring these things up because people just want to
Yeah,
like resolve the issue. And if you bring it up the wrong way, you become the issue.
totally. Totally. It's a really good sense. I think you're nailing on something too with the timing. Something I said in the videos was you don't want to make the plan of who to eliminate before the immunity challenge happens. I'd say that's probably broadly true because every time you end up making a plan, that person ends up winning immunity. Of course, they edit it in such a way that that comes true. Um, but it seems like that's a pretty consistent theme. Would you say that that tracks with what plans you've seen blow up versus which plans actually make it through?
Great point. Yes. I mean, I think sometimes generally like if the plan naturally kind of fell to that person, like I think that like once Ozzy went home, we all naturally kind of landed on Devon's before. Like he knew he was in trouble at 7, but that's not because anyone forced it. That's just because the like domino naturally fell that way. Yeah, I think if there's time and you do it before, there's too much time for it to blow up. It like you can't come up with the plan before. And I remember from that video, like in the pre-merge, when names were flying, I was like, oh shit, I didn't follow Nick's suggestion here. None of us did. Like this is getting really messy. And then relations and like more conversations would happen. The more conversations happen, the more likelihood there is that something gets messed up. So I think that is like a tried and true. I don't think that that principle strays.
Got it. That's good. Really good feedback. One of the other big questions around this, I think, speaks to early game strategy, which is lots of tribe swaps and wanting to stay flexible and fluid at all points in time. Um, you probably just want to shut up and kind of ride the wave for the early game. It seems like is that accurate? How do you make sure you don't get sniped in the early game?
I gotta tell you, Nick, the early game is my least favorite part
Yeah.
by like it is not my jam at all. I'm the observer. I like to watch things happen, and there's a lot of like performative stuff at the beginning that it's not my bag. Um, I mean, for me, you have to ride the wave. You can't get sniped, and then you have to let people show who they are very quickly. Um, it's very much of like let the other person blow themselves up, very much so. But you also do like I this is where I've struggled a bit in the last two times I've played is like you do have to make connections pretty quickly.
Mm.
Andrea Belke, she talked to Rob Sesternino like mid-season, and she said something that's like so true that I didn't realize about myself is like I can be very guarded at first, and then once you know me, like I'm great. And I do struggle because like people do want that comfort of like they feel good and comfortable with you off the bat. Um, I don't know if I'm an expert on the early part of the game. I'm going to be real honest because I've gotten the feedback that in
You've
50, I
made
got
it.
the
You've made it through the early part of the game plenty of times.
well,
So
thank you. But I've been told that like I'm too aggressive at the beginning. And then also it was really fun because I was been told I was too aggressive at the beginning of 50 in some ways, yet Stephanie LaGrossa would tell you that she didn't like that I didn't commit. So I was non-committal. So I got the feedback of both. And I'm like, so for me, yeah, it's a ride the wave. Oh, fuck the beginning of the game. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
no right answer. What
Just
do you?
slot
Okay,
me in the
so
merge and I'll play it anytime. Don't put me at
let
the beginning.
I guess then let's talk about like what do you do when you have the numbers early versus not the numbers early, especially in the early game. You've got a personal first-hand experience with this of both
Yeah.
sides. How do you play it differently?
Oh, how do you play it differently if you have the numbers at the beginning versus don't? I don't think you play it differently. I think you focus on making those relationships with other people who aren't in your core or aren't with you at all. I really think you always have to make sure you have like a vine to swing to on the other side of the jungle, like metaphorically. Like
If you
something.
get swap fucked, you end up on a tribe. You don't have a
Yes.
lot of relationships. It's always immediately start building one-on-ones.
Yeah, like I remember, oh my God, I got swapped with Sandra Varner, Michaela, JT, and Malcolm. I have no clue how I survived that. That was horrible. I've never been more relieved to have another swap. I ended up with like Brad, Suri, Andrea. I don't remember who it was. But yeah, it's like I'm always the person at a swap who wants to like make a buddy with the person opposite me. I've always done that in life though. Like it's very natural for me. I'm always like between groups. So I'm always like looking to just kind of diversify my portfolio, so to speak.
Makes sense. You know, it's actually I got that tip of the being a ghost in the group and strong one-on-ones from Adam Klein, believe it or not. Um,
Really? Yeah.
yeah, he and I chatted maybe like a couple months after he won,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, I mean
Amazing.
we connected through mutual friends, and
Yeah.
obviously I'm a Survivor mega fan, and I was a challenge designer for them too. So
Yeah.
I've been
Oh, cool.
around the circles. Yeah,
Yeah, you have such a cool, like, what a journey. What do you do now?
I'm a video game designer now.
How cool.
Yeah, I'm making a roguelike dice builder with AI. I've been
Wow.
working with a small team for the past year, but
Wonderful.
as of April, I'm actively coding, which is really, really cool. It's a completely new game set.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
What a
but
life you
I've been in a lot of gaming fields. I was a board game designer for many years. I've got like 30 in market. I was a Survivor Challenge designer. I designed escape rooms. I've done
I
murder
gotta get
mysteries.
out that show. I wish that was whacked. Doodles. I'm like,
Yeah, you like that?
my friend Melissa Sullivan, Mel Got Served on social media, introduced me to you. She's like, you gotta see what Doodles is posting about Survivor. You gotta see it. She got me. She knew who you were. But that show, come on, that show's awesome. Bring that shit back.
Honestly, it was really, really fun. Me personally, I felt like there were some structural game design things that I would change.
Yeah.
Namely, I would give two exits rather than just one, It helps to
Interesting.
make it a lot easier to escape, but highly
Yeah.
recommend going and watch the show. It's a
Yeah,
blast.
very cool.
Total
Very cool.
dramatic comedy.
You should produce a show. Another like
Let's run it back.
okay,
Yeah,
I
I've got
love
a
it.
couple ideas here and there. You never know. Could be in my future.
That's cool.
Um, yeah, I would love to do another version of like Survivor, but the opposite of Survivor. Everybody always does elimination. I want to do finding your team through the course of a show because there's no real show that allows you to win together. And I think there's something really, really fun about starting as individuals and then ending as a group or a small team.
Shit, I would not win that game.
Hey, you never
That's
know.
really cool. That's really, really cool. Maybe I would. That's so cool. Huh.
I think you have to, when you're designing a show like this, you need to play on some base emotions of what people are looking for in their regular life.
Yeah.
Um,
Very cool.
and make sure that it's simple enough that it can be explained in like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like with Survivor, somebody's voted out every week. Is it going to be you?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Last one standing wins, right? So
That's
very
very cool.
clear goal.
Yeah.
Needs to be that level of clearness.
Very cool.
Um, I would love to talk a little bit about the mid game and end game. I know we're running up on time here. Thank you for all the time that you're giving. It's really, really
Yes,
cool.
I love this. I've been dying to
So,
talk to you.
thanks,
I
appreciate
have.
it.
I do. You really like I told you this, but I remember being there with Christian and Devins and Emily and not having I knew I wasn't in a place of control at the beginning of the merge. And I was like, I got to at least sound smart. And I'm like, the biggest move in the game is made between like 6 and 9, but it feels like there are less pieces on the board here at 11. So we have to treat it like it's 6 and 9. And Christian was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay, good, good. Thanks, Nick. Your line helped me get through with some bullshit to the professor. Anyway,
Hey, if it matched his frame of playing,
yes.
perfect.
That's what it was. I was like, okay, Nick Metzler has some Christian Hubicki frame lines. Let me just feed him right now. Good. And he's like, you seem level headed. I'm like, great. Let's go. Let's vote you out next, Christian.
Slip that in. It's perfect.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of twists in 50.
There were.
Opinions aside about what all those twists were, there was a lot of twists, and as a result, there was a lot of chaos, continual upheaval of the game. One of the things that I would think about if I was going into a game, I would look at the number of players and the number of days, and I'd do some simple math about like, okay, what needs to happen. You can kind of predict that there's going to be like a triple elimination or a double elimination. It seems like you guys did talk about those things. If you know those things coming into it and you're predicting those things, how do you manage, I guess, your own personal game plan to adjust for those things that might be coming in the future? I'm guessing it's the same thing of stay flexible, stay uncommitted, close one-on-one relationships. Is that
Diversify. Yeah, you got to diversify your people, one-on-one relationships, and stay open. We did talk, and we really did think more like we thought it'd be like doubles off the bat. I don't think many of us saw like a triple coming. I thought it was gonna be like 2-2-2 kind of thing. I didn't. I was
Totally.
like, oh, this is wild.
I was surprised by the triple two. That was a lot.
It was.
How do you, I guess, avoid the urge to play an idol when everybody knows you have it and you've told everybody that you're going to play it? I love that you saved it, by the way. That was excellent. How do you resist that urge, especially coming off of a season where you got knocked out with an idol and an advantage in your pocket?
It was awful, Nick. I said that if I had an idol, I said I wasn't going to look for idols in 50, and if I got one some weird way, I was going to play it as soon as possible. It was hard. It was that I saw Genevieve's shot in the dark didn't hit. I think that mechanism-wise, I was able to see if it hit before I made the decision,
Yep.
and so I held it. And then I made a real bad mistake saying what I said, but it was that I went and I checked the rules before that, where I believe it was that if I could watch it hit and then play it, and I think like Rachel Lamont did that too in 47. She like checked to see if it hit before she made the decision to play.
It's really smart. Did you end up asking, I'm curious, did you end up asking the producers about the rule timing?
I did.
Yeah, nice. I
I
did
did.
something similar on Got to Get Out. And in the show, I get the keys to a Lambo, and I can drive out of the gate with the Lambo. So the night before I went to the producers, I was like, can I run this instead? And they were like, yeah, sure. And so when I was at the front door deciding whether or not to run it and basically guarantee myself the win or go for the Lambo and have it be a toss-up, I was like, okay, well, why am I here? Like, truly, why am I here? I've been here for 3 days. Do I want more of a experience that I've been waiting for my entire life? Or do I want to get the win and take the money? And I was like, you know what? I want to drive a Lambo on TV. That's like such an iconic moment. I need to make this show awesome. So
That's
I went
amazing.
for the Lambo.
Amazing. That's funny. Yeah, I think I've become more of the I think I would have gone for the win, but hey,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that would have been the right move. So
what's the
I don't
right
blame you
move?
at all.
That's the thing. What's the outcome you want? How will you get there? What will get in the way? How do you hold yourself accountable?
I'll
I
tell you
love
what,
it.
when I went back in, my mindset after that was like, okay, I just made this choice. I need to make the rest of my time here unbelievably worth it. And that's
But yeah.
honestly what contributed to the whole crazy character arc that I went on.
Yeah, but that's the amazing thing. Like that is just as much a gift. Like that's something I've learned in Survivor too. Like it isn't just about the win. I always said that. Like it was really nice to like cap it off that way. But I'm so glad I had go wrong. What a hot mess in the best way.
Totally.
Like I'm so grateful for that. I'm like, damn, I'm boring after that.
It was a really intense roller coaster. There was
Yeah,
so much stuff that was outside of your control, and my read on you from the early parts of Koran was that you came in with a really strong plan, and you had a very strong sense of who you were and how you were going to operate in the game. You had a really strong game sense as well. You came in with a very deep love for Survivor, and
yeah.
Survivor took a bat to you and whacked you over the head multiple times,
Hell
and you had to
yeah.
figure out how to survive.
Yes, it did. It did. And then it ended up being more about like the resilience. I've always resonated with the outlast. I would outlast play part of it the most. Um, yeah, yeah, it did. It just like broke my whole framing of Survivor and then ultimately myself. Interesting. It's wild.
That's crazy
It
that
is.
it
It
does
is.
that, but
It's,
I can totally relate. Um, that's
I wish everyone could play it instead of go to college.
it teaches you a lot. Teaches you a lot about yourself. There's so much that you just don't know, and I think
Yes.
that was the one of the biggest pieces for me is when I left the game. I realized how much of a main character everybody else was, and how many plans existed but didn't come to fruition. And that's the same with the show. Like when you're seeing the show, you're taking 72 hours from multiple perspectives and you're condensing it down to 45 minutes. Like stuff is going to get lost in the details, of course.
Yes.
And even more so when you're like on Ponderosa or at the edge of extinction, when you're discussing with the people like all of these different types of plans. I feel like that experience is the thing that opens your eyes to there's so much more that I realized that I didn't realize out of the
So
game, and
much.
it changes you for future seasons.
It does. And I wish the Edge of Extinction had its own feed like Big Brother. It was amazing what was happening out there.
It sounds really boring because you're not really doing anything, but I'm guessing it was actually really cool and really emotional and relationship building
It
because
was.
the tension and the deception is gone. You're just relating
Yeah.
to each other as people.
Yeah. I'm very close to Reem still. And it was very like that was where my catharsis about Survivor started, for sure. And about like validating, I'd say the reaction to me voting for Chris Underwood and the people, the like outcry after that very much informed my perception on jury management and understanding that you really have to validate everyone else's experience first before you even tell them what you did. If you don't have that as like the basic layer, you're never going to win. You cannot invalidate someone's frame. You cannot go against someone's frame. And the other thing I learned is that you have to be, I was trying to say this to Rob Sester, and I don't know how to say it, but throughout the game, you have to minimize the discrepancy or incongruency in who you are during the game and who you present at the end.
Mm,
So I really worked on that because I can go wrong. I'm like deceive, like mess with people, lie, cheat, steal. And something I learned from Sandra, which I was always like, she could be upfront to your face and be like, yo, Nick, I don't like you. But you know what? At least you knew so that when she got to the end, it was like Sandra in the game, Sandra at the end, same person.
sure.
People are often this person and then they're that person at the end. And like you're requiring the jury to like close that gap. That's a really hard gap to close in like a 2 hour final tribal. So it's about validation and affirming that
It's
you
a
are who
really
you
great
chose.
segue.
Yeah. So I'm like going into that.
It's a really good segue to your incredible final tribal speech. It was, I don't want to say textbook because the textbook has been written, but if I was writing a textbook, I would use yours as the perfect example. Because you showed that story of change, you showed how you related to the other people there, you talked to validating everybody else's frame of reference about the game itself as well. And you
Yes.
did a really interesting stylistic choice, which may fly under the radar for most people, but I'm calling it out because it was really deliberate. When you were describing your own story, you didn't say I, you said she.
The only other person who noticed that was Coach. Hmm. I didn't even realize I was doing that. I
Interesting.
think I have a toddler, so I speak to him like that. There's something in like developmental psychology. I saw it on Instagram. I forget what it was. It's like parents just intuitively know that their child doesn't have the concept of like I. But I think that as a marketer and then somebody who knows that the final tribal is more about validating the jury's experiences than your own, I think I just intuitively flipped into the third person. Like Survivor now is like in my DNA and my blood, everything that I do. Like I go through life being like, that's a pre-merge boot, that's a merge boot. Like that's how I think about people. I truly do. And I think that I knew that this had to be all about them and it wasn't about me. And so I would prefer to present them the story like as objectively as possible, stripping myself out of it. They're not in my shoes. Why should they care? They should care about what they're looking at. They should care about the representative of their season. They should care, is that person you're presenting me as evidence the experience that I had, yes or no? And then it's up to them to check their own frame against the neutral frame I presented.
Super, super smart. How much do you, I guess, if you played again, how much would you focus on other people's perception of who should win the season, and then keep that in mind for the final tribal speech so that you can say, like, based on your perception of who should win, this is my story? Or is that like way overkill?
I think it might be overkill now. I do think in 50, I was very appropriately, like, by serendipity, can call it luck. I think you make your own luck in a lot of ways, but it was the Phoenix, the evolution, the 50, the arc. I think my story naturally kind of laddered up, like where I was in my survivor journey in life, laddered up to the theme. It would really, like, it would depend on the theme, but I also think that it's not necessarily something that you can determine going in. I think you have to kind of write the story along the way. Like I will say, Nick, like I did a lot of thinking when I knew I was going to be in the final tribal, almost like retrofitting my experience in 50 to the story I thought that would be the story at the end, if that makes sense. So
It
like I
totally
will
makes
say
sense, and
I
it
didn't
sounds like
solidify.
very marketing mindset as well. Because like
Yeah.
there's a zillion stories that could exist. Which one is going to be the story that
Yeah.
wins it?
And it's a time and a place, right? It's a time and a place. Like I think I love Jonathan, but I think that Jonathan came in wanting to rewrite his story of like the big guy who like went back and studied with Boston Rob and then had like this strategy and showed a different side of himself. And I wanted to hold space for my story, but I very much was like, okay, this is season 50. This is the theme. These are the questions that will sort of be asked. This is the story that will be told. And then, like, how does everything I did ladder up to that while also including each of the jury members as main characters at different parts?
Super smart. How did you frame, I guess, each of the jury members as main characters? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So a couple of examples. This wasn't shown, but I like very explicitly called out Suri as the best player of all time, and that's why I think you can't win. I
I
literally said,
concur with that, by the way. She is
some people were
phenomenal.
unhappy.
She's unbelievable, godlike, and everybody knows it too. And that's why, again, she'll never make it all the way.
I honestly think she should be like president or like something massive. I truly believe that. She's amazing. I love her. Um, so one thing I did was like Christian. Um, when I told the story of my ability to zig and zag and go between groups, I identified Christian as someone who took me in. I absolutely loved him, but I saw that he was being perceived as the middle and he was becoming the tallest poppy in the field after he did a lot of legwork to save me in Devon's. And so after that vote, I'm sorry, Christian, but like you were emerging as too much of a threat. And so I had to put the target on you to save myself and move to the other side. So like that kind of validated to Christian, like without being too heavy handed, that I did see him in the way that he probably wanted to ideally see himself in the game.
Got it.
But
Everybody
like you
wants
can't put her
to
up too
feel
much.
like they were
Yeah.
taken out because they were a
Yes.
threat. This is something that I played a game with somebody else who played a really good game, but then he screwed up the final tribal because he called out that some people were big threats and some people were not threats at all,
Ooh,
and
that's
that was a
bad.
huge flub. It was like, what, you just pissed off half the jury because you said that they weren't threats. Like, what do you think that does to their ego? You know?
Yeah, it's nothing, no, and it's not good. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like kiss everyone's ass. Like another example is like Dee. She was the Queen of Ponderosa. I believe she said, I forget if it was aired, but I think when she went out, she goes, she warned people that the people in the middle are like the people that you're worried about or whatever. I made sure to throw in like talking and I'm like, when Dee said that you should watch out for the people in the middle, like I just validated like even just a small moment that for her was her Hail Mary, but it was probably something she really thought about. Like she's like, Aubrey listened and like heard me. Like if people also warn you about something,
Mm,
at the end, you should like acknowledge their Nostradamus. Like they warned
exactly.
me this was gonna happen, and like that's how Sandra won the entire game in Heroes Villains. And she's like, I warned you. Like if you acknowledge someone's intuition, it could be like a small moment where you're like, up, up, up. Like it didn't work with Stephanie, but when I was asked like something I could have done better, I was like, I didn't make Stephanie feel comfortable, and she was like, yeah, you didn't, and I'm like, okay. So validate like even along the way, like how they felt that that emotion was real.
Super, super smart. Final, last little question here, because I know we're already over time.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
forever.
if Ty is in 50, do you
Ty,
work with him?
love him, and I saw him 2 weeks after I won. Oh my gosh, what a question, Nick. If Ty's in 50, I think we inevitably cross paths, but I think that it was time for us, for each of us, to have our own journey. What a question. What is it with me and Ty? We're cosmically linked in this game. What do you think?
I think you end up working with him again, and I think one of you ends up betraying the other. Um,
Yeah, I
like
think that that's our fate. I mean, if you get into like
your arc
spiritual guru
consistently.
stuff, yeah, I mean, I've done like past life regression stuff where you're like, who was I in a past life? And I'm pretty sure Ty was probably someone I've had this pattern with in many lifetimes.
Amazing.
I love him.
Um,
Yeah.
Aubrey, this was an incredible conversation. Thank you so, so much.
You,
Um, yeah, I would love to, chat about this again in the future if you're up for
anytime.
it. But this was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I would love to. I would. This is so. I needed this. Thank you. I've been looking forward to this conversation because you really did help me in those fleeting moments before your phone is removed. Um, I felt like I had a
I'm honored.
cram and I hadn't watched the new era. I hadn't watched any of it. And I was like, I need to like think about this almost like in a business strategy way because I do think I do take a lot of value in like extrapolating out of my own experience and seeing the big picture lately. And you helped me with that. It was like the perfect level of thinking about it. So
I
anytime.
was honestly shocked when you dropped that information on Rob has a podcast. I was blown away. Wait, you watched my videos? No way.
I sure did.
There's only like 1,000 views on it. That's the craziest part. Like,
I know. I went back. I'm like, what the hell? So I'm gonna reshare some of those. I That was the right level of thinking for me. So
well,
thanks.
Aubrey,
You
once
did
again,
help me.
thank you so much.